Social proof, nobody's riding right now.
Also, too, although like I know be it in Nevada, right, 50cc scooters.
Yep.
Taos, what the, right? I'm just saying.
The what?
As far as like in my market, right, because we have our best with Diageo.
Okay.
If you just compare like product and price points and things like that, I can see where some of those numbers would be a little bit skewed just in my area based off of local laws. But a 50cc scooter is going to be registered. You have motorcycle license to be on it. So you're going to go buy a $700 scooter versus my $4,000 vessel. So I just could see how some of that number could be a little bit skewed just by like that Chinese market.
Sure.
And first entry-level buyers, just like you said, $500 is different for someone at 17 who can just go hop on a scooter, get down the street, and be able to contribute from that percentage. Especially when I ride around our city and just see Chinese scooter after Chinese scooter after Chinese scooter and never ever even do it.
10%, I'll give you.
Yeah.
I'll give you 10% of 10,000 plus dealers in the country. I won't give you 54.
Kind of like us, we took on CF Moto, probably the best thing we ever did. But it become my number one seller. But they haven't heard our Can-Am, so they haven't heard our Yamaha, so they haven't heard our Suzuki. So it's price point driven side by side four-wheeler. But they're buying those, but they're still buying everything else that we sell. But the Chinese brand still, one of the people backing up those Can-Am too, so
86% of everybody, Polk Industries, bought a product that was different in color or a completely different model than the one they came in for. I appreciate the fact you're coming in for a CF Moto. Have you seen the new Can-Am? Let me show you how the price difference matters. Right? But if they never walk in the door, but I promise you they're in your door, look at your traffic log. Look at your swing counter. Look at the fact that we're just not following up with people, right? So, something to consider, right? There's a reason they're going somewhere else, and it's not your price, not your proximity, and not your urgency. Now, let me take you to 2015, end of year. That's a full year of data of brands, every major brand. What's the first thing that jumps off the page at you? Harley Davidson. Right? And you scroll down and you say, so this is month, 5 columns of the month of December, 31,000 total units versus 32,000 in 2014, so we're down 1,294. And then year to date through December. The whole industry sold 500,695 units. The entire industry, right? Which is up 17,000 units over the year prior, 3.6% change. And on one hand, you sit there and you're like, yeah, the industry's improving, the industry's going up. You know what that number was in 2006? 1.2 million. We're still way behind where we were, right? So I appreciate the industry's moving, it's still not what it was. And what's funny to me is when you look at what's selling, 17,000, come down here and you look at Polaris Indian, 10,822 versus 5,965. Almost 5,000 additional Indians year over year. This isn't total Indians, it's year over year. They went up 5,000 units. Number one selling Indian last year was the Scout, not the big bagger nostalgic looking thing, right? And then Polaris, what's Polaris by the way? Slingshot. They only have one motorcycle, it's called Slingshot, having nothing to do with their ATVs and UTVs. The Polaris is a Slingshot of which they sold 7,342 Slingshots. And they would have sold 10,000 if they would have had them. The difference in Slingshots and the increase in Indians accounts for 11,000 of the 17,000 unit increase year over year. What do people want? Different is what they want. They want. It's funny to me because you still talk to Harley guys. You say, "Hey guys, what's the most exciting Harley? What's selling?" And they'll say, "Baggers." In the Harley space, even baggers have completely shut down in the last quarter in the Harley space. But they always used to say baggers, and that's not it. It's the Cafe Racer style of a motorcycle. And you go down to, I'll address Triumph here in 1 second, but go down to Yamaha. Yamaha, right? 73,000 units. They're up 2,200 units. Yamaha's back to a 15% market share. They were playing in the single digits, right? Yamaha had a really good year. What are the Yamaha brands selling? FZ07, FZ09, Cafe Racer looking style, smaller edgy, dirty, cool. What happened to Triumph? Strategic move on the part of Triumph to purposely deplete dealer inventory to put you in a position to take on all the new stuff, which I hope you're getting full margin on all the new stuff. They recognize the fact that their bikes weren't necessarily moving, and so they scaled down production to get you thin to put you in a position to increase market share. Does that make sense? May, year over year. Up 5.8%, right? You guys had the biggest first quarter you've had ever at the start of this year. Again, deplete the inventory, put you in a position to get the new product in-house, and the new product was rocking, and you're doing it at full margin. That was a strategic move on their part. That's why they were down year over year. Let me go back to this bullet point here. School, you want to go see if lunch is ready for us? So, come back here. Oh, that's the one I just had up. Is that the one I'm after? Yeah. So come back here and say, even with the decrease, right? Harley had a decrease of 3,100 units, right? And by the way, just so you know, Harley's got a problem. They got a real problem going on right now. They know that Cafe Racer market, that look is where they should be, and their Street 500 and Street 750 missed the mark by a long shot, okay? Harley has had a 6-year initiative called the Outreach Program. The Outreach Program was designed to get Black, Hispanic, women, and youth involved in motorcycling because those are typically the demographics they don't have. They did a very good job of getting Black, Hispanic, and women involved. Guess who they suffered with? Horrible job getting the young rider involved. They just don't have a product that appeals to the young rider as a whole. Okay, but here's the interesting thing about Harley. Even with the decrease, they're all the way down to a third market share. All the way down. Honda, second place, 15.8. Now let me rewind the clock to 2006 for you, when Honda's market share was at 26% and Harley's market share was at 24%. That wasn't that long ago. The genesis of this, the history of it, was that when the economy tanked, the financing companies for metric motorcycles went away, or all of a sudden they were only buying A paper. Guess what Harley did? They took out a 15% loan with Warren Buffett, and they doubled down on Harley-Davidson Financial Services, so everybody could get bought on a Harley. So the guy that couldn't get bought on a Honda could get bought on a Harley, and they bought market share. They artificially inflated their market share. This 30+% market share has been since the economy rebounded. It has not been, see, we got accustomed to seeing it because it's been that way since 2009, 2010. We've been watching it for 6-7 years now, playing the 30+%. But they artificially propped it up. The problem is it's a publicly held company, and they're going to continue to artificially prop that market share up. So if you talk to people on Harley Financial Services, they'll tell you, I don't know what the hell the motor company's doing, because they're totally different companies. They're like, they got all these knee-jerk programs that are out there. They're offering a 0% interest rate on a CVO motorcycle. They've never done that ever in the history of the company because they've never needed to do that in the history of the company. They're buying so unbelievably deep to keep market share up because it's a publicly held company. And even artificially inflating it, they were still down 3,100 units, 3,200 units. So if you want a prediction out of me, they're going to be in the 20% by end of this year. Not at 20, they're going to be in the 20s, 28, 29%. That's my prediction. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But they keep playing in this space over here. That being said, when a third of every motorcycle going down the road is a Harley Davidson, that requires some attention. We should look at that, right? How is it that Harley has such a strong presence? Gotta be because they're the fastest motorcycles in the market. Well,
I spent a lot of money on mine, and
it's not. But that's not why you bought it either. And you know what else I know? You didn't buy it because it's got the best technology of any bike on the market.
It's the lifestyle of the brand.
Lifestyle, branding. It's not because they're the most reliable?
Really?
Well, certainly they're the lightest weight. Well, then they got to be the cheapest.
Best racing machine.
Huh?
Best in racing.
Best in racing? The fact of the matter is, if humans were logical creatures, which I love it, that some human beings are so unbelievably egotistical, we think we're so far above animals because we have this logical brain, which is true, but you also think that we make logical decisions, which is categorically false. We make emotional decisions, not logical decisions. Look no further than that number right there. Because if you were going to say, here, what are the top 10 reasons somebody would own a Harley Davidson? Let me rephrase. Top 10 reasons someone would own a motorcycle. Let's look at performance. Let's look at weight. Let's look at handling. Let's look at reliability. Let's look at price point. Let's look at speed. Let's look at, where would Harley be on that logical list? Dead last. And you got to know, Harley executives love it when I do that with them in the room. They love that. Pisses them off. But they have to be realistic. Their bike is dead last in every one of those categories. But it doesn't matter because that's not why someone buys a Harley. Augie, to your point, they're buying something different. Harley's had a legend model now for years.